great lady, and to remember those really interesting and I think significant days.
Yeah, tell us what a lot of people wouldn't know about Nancy.
Oh, that's a great question. You know, when you think of Nancy Reagan, I think you think of the great work of her life in her fabulous partnership with Ronald Reagan in the making of an American presidency and in the years of the 1980s, and you know, you remember that era and her part in it, and there was a lot of fun in that time, a lot of glamour and fun in the Reagan White House, and a lot of big things happened there. A lot got done. I mean, the fall of the wall, etc. But I think there were other great parts of her life that are generally not known. One is, or not fully perhaps understood or appreciated, but when the president got sick about 1994, and then he died about 2005, in that just more than a decade, there was the great responsibility joyously carried out by Nancy to take care of and protect this man whose illness was worsening, you know, fairly going on plateaus and then worsening, as happens with Alzheimer's. And it was difficult, and she was getting older herself, and she did it like a perfect, wonderful, loving friend, and took care of this American president who to her was a very precious person in every way. Another thing that I think is not generally known is that in the last 10, 15 years of her life, she worked so valiantly to take care of the Reagan Library, which was another act of loyalty to her husband, to take care of the Reagan Library and the Reagan Foundation, to go to the meetings, to raise funds, to see that it was fully endowed. And she did this up until very late in her life. I saw her going to meetings and dinners and get-togethers, fundraising. I saw her walking in on her own, and then a few years later walking in with a cane, and then a few years after that on a walker, and in her last years in a wheelchair. And she worked it so that that foundation, which represented what Ronald Reagan was in the world, would be fully endowed, fully successful, and last on forever into the future.
Well, that's, and Peggy, I mean, throughout the day-to-day, so many people describing just what an incredible love story the two of them had. I have talked to others, though, you know, who knew both Ronald and Nancy Reagan, and they said one thing that people don't realize about her is just how funny she was.
Oh, that's so true. She had a lovely, teasing sense of humor. She was saucy. She did wisecracks. She was wry. She loved, in the last 10 years, I was very lucky and privileged to become a friend, and boy, she loved the stuff we all love. She loved fun and conversation and good gossip. You know, she was, in some ways, a real girl's girl in terms of talking about the wonderful foibles and interesting lives of others. She took a lot of joy in social events and in get-togethers.